Hello, my name is Marcus and welcome to Tabletop Reviews, where today it's a bit of a different look. I'm hoping to show as much of my shelves as possible, although the table is still here. It is the 100th episode of Tabletop Reviews, and I've thought long and hard, how could I make this special? At one point it was just like, I need to record 5 games I've played, so let's just talk about it in that one. No, that doesn't feel right. It has to be more special than that. So I am doing a longer video talking about multiple games. I have a list right here. Actually, I can 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, and in total there's 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10. I guess that's 13, 14 expansions. Because that's what this is. This is expansion Extravaganza. Name totally not inspired by a AEG Kickstarter from last year. Totally not. But yeah, I just decided I have all of these small games with some small expansions that I really love. These expansions, like, this is going to be a very positive video. All these expansions I really like. So that's going to score quite high. And I thought, but none of them really have the sustenance to complete in one video. It would be 2 minutes long of me saying, this does this, and it's amazing. So now I'm going to do that instead of 14 times. I'm going to do this, change it a little bit. Now this does completely rely on you knowing how the game works. I'm not going to do a full gameplay overview. It's only going to be focused on the expansion, what it adds, what it might change. So yeah. But I'm going to use the little, I don't know, would it be like here maybe? Am I touching it now? A little like the circle thing that will show you the original video. I will remember to do that, and I'll also have on the lines below, I will try to have timestamps, right, so you can skip ahead if you want to. But without further ado, let's just get into the expansions. Forest Shuffle. Alright, I'm not gonna waste a whole bunch of time on this first one here. It basically just adds cards, like it's just some extra cards. So I have some examples here. There's some extra cards that it adds. And obviously it also means a new symbol, the Alpine symbol right here. And a new symbol up here in the top. It's called Swiss Pine, and there's also, of course I didn't get one of those, so I just show in the back of the rulebook. You also have the symbol right there, the purple one, right? The pink and purple and Alps. And that's it. That's what it adds. Cards, new symbol, and of course, new rules in terms of the setup and how many cards you have to remove when playing with this extra deck. But that's Forest Shuffle Alpine. Alright, so that's Forest Shuffle. And these kinds of expansions, I'm always a little bit on the fence of what I'm going to give them. Because on one point, it does not change the gameplay whatsoever, so can it be a 10 out of 10? Because it doesn't change it, but not for the better, not for the worse. But at the same time, it does something that I love, especially for a game like Forest Shuffle. Once you have explored the game cards in Forest Shuffle, really gotten to the bottom of them, you just add some more, about 40 or something I think. So it's very nice. But I've decided that it cannot get a perfect score. It cannot get that perfect 10 out of 10 score. And I can't even give it a 9. 9 and 10 are reserved for expansions that really make a game better. And this game doesn't make a game better or worse. It maybe just extends the replayability. So it's gonna give an 8 for Forest Shuffle Alpine. Happy Little Dinosaurs. Alright, most of the expansion for this one is just card expansion. So you have Perils of Puberty, which adds a few different cards. It actually comes in with the first bit of a different mechanic, which is these cards right here, which count for 2 disasters in your cards. They add those. Now this is a gross over representation of how many cards in it. I can't actually separate the Perils of Puberty cards because there's no symbol on them. Opposite, obviously, the dating disaster cards, which have a little heart symbol. They add a whole bunch of cards here, And also a tiny little new mechanic. Let me just find one. Here it is. During scoring each round, you may add 1 point to your score for each emotional. So this one adds a point to your score if you have others in that color. Obviously only up to 2. But another little bit of a change to it, but mostly you're gonna get this one for the cards. I also have a tiny little disaster promo called cosplaying. It's just a promo. I'm just gonna put it there. And then where did the cards for that one go? Oh, there. Then we have the big expansion. Well, there is also the 5 to 6 player expansion, but because I have the collector's exclusive edition, it's just a part of it. So this is, however, the second 5 to 6 player expansion called Hazards Ahead. So obviously it adds a whole bunch of new cards for disasters in the regular deck. And most of these cards are all made to be a part of the expansion, so they're about hazards, but we'll get into that. There's also 2 new dinosaurs here. The easygoing Anki and the moody Mosasaurus. Very cool, 2 new dinosaurs. And then you have the all-new mechanic, the hazard cards here. And the hazard tokens. And as I said, the cards that you add are all about these cards. The first hazard token that you add is going to be added on the 20th space. Everybody gets one of those at the start of the game. One on the 20th spot. Throughout the game, there are some cards that will add a disaster to your hand, to your place. When you add this disaster card to your disaster area, you may add a hazard token to any other player's escape route. It's this one. So let's say I got that one. I can now take one of the other hazard tokens and I can add it to a player. Now, if they, in this instance, already have a hazard token, it is placed 5 spots ahead of it. But if, let's say, he had gone up here, he had obviously removed this one, we'll get into how it happens, then it is placed 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces ahead of his dinosaur. Now what happens when you cross it? You don't have to land on it. When you just cross it, you remove the token, and you draw a hazard card. And these are usually something bad. This example is, if this card is in your hazard area, subtract 2 from the value of point cards you play during sudden death. So a little one to bite you in the butt, but nothing too serious. There are then some cards, as I said in the expansion cards, that allows you to remove these cards. And that's the hazards ahead. And that's all of the, actually that's all of the Happy Little Dinosaurs expansions. And there we have them. So, as explained for Shuffle Alpine, for the dating disaster and the what's it called, Perils of Puberty, I can't give them perfect score when they just add cards. But they don't just add cards, they do have something that changes some things. I think if all the cards in it did something very different like that, I could have given it a 9. I could, because it's very lovely. But I'm gonna give both of them an 8, because it's like a quarter, not even a quarter of the cards, it's like a 1/6 of the cards in it, the hazard cards that have that. In Dating Disaster, I think it's only 2 or 3. Was in Perils of Puberty, it is higher at 4 or 5 of them ish. But both of them add 10-15 disaster cards, so it's nothing, right? So I can't, it's more than the 6th, I know. So I just can't really get it up there. But if more of the disaster cards was oriented towards that, you could mix it in, you get it more, then it could have been a 9. But it's gotta be an 8. The promo card, I don't know. The promo is, I love promos. I almost always give promos a 10. Might as well give that a 10 as well. This is where it gets interesting. So, by the way, the 5 to 6 play expansion is the other one is good. I don't know about that one. I can't remember. I can't even remember when I give the game. What did I give the game? A 9, I think. What is it? Was it only an 8? It's one of those 2. Whatever it is, the 5 to 6 play expansion gets that as well. I can't remember. But here we have Hazards Ahead, which definitely changed up the gameplay with those hazard tokens. And all of the cards in it are about those. All the disaster cards, and even most of the player cards, the playing cards, those are about the hazard tokens, is about that. It really gets into this, and of course you have those new dinosaurs. It really does change the gameplay a bit, and for the better, I think. It's a lovely expansion to it. And it comes at the right time, right? We've played Happy Little Dinosaurs a lot. I don't know if you can see it on the box. We've really played it, we've really exhausted it, and then this expansion comes along. I think it's 1 or 2 years, 2 years later, it comes along, we've played it a lot, now we can change it up ever so slightly for the better, with a new challenge approaching, and it's very balancing. Because again, if you get ahead a lot, you're going to get more hazard tokens, you're going to get more hazard cards, it's going to be more difficult for you. But it's a very good balancing thing, just to cap the luck of it, right? Because one player could be lucky and have 3/9 value cards. You're probably going to do great with that, but you're going to be a target for hazard tokens. So it's lovely. I don't think it's perfect because it becomes more take of that, which it already is a lot. Happy Little Dinosaurs. I don't know if I can give it a 10. It just doesn't feel. It feels it's a 9. Definitely changes things for the way the better. It's an amazing addition. I just don't. It doesn't feel like a 10, if you know what I mean. It's a 9. It's still good. It's a 9. Distilled. Alright, no setup for this one, as it just explains a bunch of cards. So first of all, for Distilled here, I don't know if I talked about this one, you do have the African Middle East expansion, which of course adds a bunch of specialist cards here, or upgrade cards. It adds in, first of all, it adds glucose syrup, which counts as 1 of any. And then you add in, you also have a neutral spirit alcohol, which comes in as either yeast or water. And most interestingly, you have these, 1 for each, which count double. So this is 2 plant sugars, this is 2 fruit sugars, this is 2 grain sugars, but only 1 card. So yeah, counting double right there. It also means that you add 2 alcohol. It of course adds in items where you have the bottles. It's in a premium upgraded metal barrel. And it adds in the clay and wooden barrel that you can keep after selling, so you don't have to purchase new ones all the time. I haven't realized that when playing, but that is a brilliant addition to the game. Then you have cask strength, which adds quite a bit more. So it adds tasting cards with abilities you can replace with the top card from the deck, so you can try and make it stronger. You of course have a couple of equipment cards here, they're decent with some abilities. And you have all new premium cards, 32 premium cards, replacing the premium ingredients in the regular deck here, making them a bit better. As you can see, all of these ones have an ability of some sort, whilst most of these ones down here don't have an ability. But the most important change to cask strength, I'm just going to clear out some space for myself here, is the dynamic market here. I really hope I didn't fuck it all up by not showcasing it to you properly with the cards, but whatever. This one changes up purchasing and selling both your barrels and your ingredients, and selling your whiskies. As you can see up here, you have some ingredients that cost an additional coin, 1 additional money. And this one is barrels and fruit sugars, and plant sugars, however, cost 1 less. Whilst over here, when selling, you can see that African Middle East, they give you 2 extra coins when selling, and the Europe ones give you 1 extra, while the African and Americas, no, that's not Africa, that's of course Asian and American ones don't, and you switch it over here. Well, that's unfortunate. Fruit sugars would in this case twice in a row cost an extra, but now we have grain sugar and bottles costing 1 less. African Middle East still giving extra, but this time Asia giving 1 extra. So it changes every single round. You can see here's another one. Finally, fruit sugars cost some less. Now you can sell your American spirits. Grain sugar back. Fruit sugar cost extra. They do that quite a lot. I hope it's balanced. It is. Now the European ones are quite valuable over here. It changes from round to round which ones you want to sell. A great addition to it. And that's it. Yeah, no setup for this one. It's very basic. So those were the Distilled expansions. I can't remember how much I talked about African Middle East expansion when I did the initial review. So I'm gonna reiterate some things here, maybe. And then you have Cask Strength, the all new one. It kind of came as a surprise. But I also figured out that I wasn't part of Pavas and Games newsletter, so I signed up for that right away, because I want to keep up these guys. But we have Africa and Middle East, which basically just adds cards. It adds some new spirits from Africa and the Middle East, funny enough. And some characters that you are from there, of course some tasting flights containing those drinks. Some special equipment, and of course adds those ingredients. The double ingredients and the one of any kind of sugar ingredient, what I've already... Glucose, was it that it was called? Interesting to have it added as African Middle East, but nice to have. And it's another one of those with just cards that I'm kind of split on. Because, and one way, those cards, those ingredients, very different. You want to get those. It's a double. Very powerful. Really cool to get a hold of. But at the same time, it just adds cards, right? So I'm gonna give it an 8. It's the highest I can go with these that just add cards but doesn't really change the gameplay. Cask Strength technically also just adds cards. Of course you have these now with powers cards, which is fine, and the tasting flights that I also have, not tasting flights, the taste cards, tasting journals, those that also have a power now. It does change some things in it, but it just adds cards. You do have the variable market thing, which does change sort of the gameplay. I'm a little bit on the verge with this one because it adds cards, it changes up a lot of things, and it's very great. And I probably just will play with it every time because it's so great to have this market that changes up your strategy. But it just adds cards. I am going to break my own little rule and give it a 9 because it is really a great addition to the game of Distilled. So Distilled Cask Strength gets a 9 and the African Middle East gets an 8. Let's move on. Creature Comforts and Maple Valley. You see the game set up for 2 players. Well, you see most of it. I don't think some things in the edges, but those are not important. We have another two micro expansions actually that came with the Kickstarter this time, not having to buy them. The first one I can talk about is the crow right here. You can see so I can't see the camera, so I'm just hoping you can see that figure properly. He starts on this location, which I can never remember. The lodge is where he starts here. And basically, if you have your little traveler meeple here, let's just say, you know, I was here and I wanted to travel. I traveled through the route and I ended up here. I can now trade one of anything for one of another of anything. And that, of course, is any of the resources or the curiosities or anything over here. So let's say I had a flower here. I could trade it in for some honey. Yay! Then the crow will move along one route of the same color that you travel with. So in this example, I travel along the blue, so the crow will travel along the blue to the next position. The next player who enters in there does the same thing, trades, and the crow moves. Let's say you're at the brown, he moves with the brown. So it's a way to trade one for one, all the way throughout the game, and then he constantly moves around. So it's a nice touch, can make a location a little bit better or something. The other expansion are the, oh, what is it it's called? I don't have the con here. The feathery friends or feathered friends or something feather friends. Basically, we'll get these cards right here and access to a new curiosity, which are the feathers. Now the feathers, I just want to point out, do not count with the crow. You cannot get a feather by trading with the crow. You can only get a feather through one of the cards. So let's say I was here, and then okay. So this one is specifically stay in your current location. I'm just gonna find one that's maybe a little bit more interesting. So for example, this one, Zoom to any occupied location, gain 2 of anything that match one's held by players there. So let's say my opponent was up here, and I play this card. When I play this card, the feather lands on that spot, and I zoom to this place with my opponent, and he has a berry, so I go, well, I get 2 berries. Okay. Now all the other cards are zoomed to a location and leave a feather. This one is stay in your current location, draw a dawdle card, and you still drop a feather, but you do not collect it. See, that is how you get feathers, is in the game. Perhaps I was here this time, I move over here to take this location, and I get the feather, which counts as any one curiosity. It counts as any one curiosity, but again, cannot trade it with the crow. The only way to get a feather is by collecting it on a spot here. And those are the 2 micro expansions for Maple Valley. So this game contains 2 micro expansions, as they call it, which I believe came with the original Kickstarter. Before I get into those, I can quickly talk about a promo that I have. It's right here, Game Table. As you could see from the logo, it's from the Dice Tower. 2 of these cards shoveled into this deck. I could mention it really quick, but there are 2 micro expansions. So one is called Dreams Come True, and they look like this. Basically, you shuffle up this tiny little pile, and then you dish out 2 cards for each player at the start of the game. Each player then looks at it, and it has something that you need to do. Now these 2 are pretty terrible to have at the same time. Have a combined total of at least 9 apple and corn. Combined total of at least 9 wood and what is that? Yarn, I think it is. So not the greatest starts. But you can try and complete those. See if there isn't there something that's a little bit easier just to show. I don't know if this is possible. Like assigning, finish your turn without assigning any of your family dice. So let's say I go on there, and there, and there. That's 4 dice, right? And maybe you're good lucky. 2, and that's a 3 and a 4. Okay. And then you just leave this one, right? Then you can say, oh wait, I just finished my turn. Bam! I didn't assign any of my family dice. So claim this one, and then you just put it somewhere amongst the other things over here, and at the end you will score the 5 points that this specific one gives you. But let's say you were in the situation that I'm in with this one, with have at least 9 of these resources, and maybe it doesn't fit the play that you're about to do. Like obviously if I wanted apples and corn anyway, it's nice, but maybe I'm going for different resources. Well, at the end of the turn, the round is over now, let's say that, I can say, well, I'm trading this one for a new one. So trade that in and draw a new one. If you're in this situation where you had completed one and therefore you only have 1 left on hand, you of course just draw 1. So you always start a new turn with 2 on your hand. And then you can go again here. I find that at the end of most round games we have 4 to 5, so it's about 1 every other round that we complete. But yeah, you should also keep an eye out for, because some of them, they're difficult, but it's a nice touch with this one. The other micro expansion are talents or individual player powers. So you have 5 cards for the 5 players, and there are animals on them, matching of course the animals of real life. This is the grey one, that's the, oh, what's it called? What's it called in English? Shit. Anyways, it's this one, and you have like a female and a male version, with each individual power. So it could add something in who chooses which color, maybe sort of a drafting method, or you could also just shuffle them up and try not to look as you distribute them randomly out to people, and then that decides what color they are for that round. All of them have different powers on either side, and you of course get to choose. I have someone who will always choose males because he's a male, but I would definitely just read it and which one would be best suited for this game maybe. But you basically just give that out and you have an ability And remember to look at it, like this one. When you successfully visit any river location, you gain something from that. And that's, you know, the river is obviously down here. I would have to remember that when I was doing, if I was doing a river location. So yeah. Now there are rules, by the way, for how you get a hold of these fruits and dafting things, but I usually be like, okay, the color you choose, or you can choose this first. Like, we'll do that. We're nice to each other. So those are the micro expansions here for Creature Comforts. Creature Comforts and Maple Valley. I've decided to just bunch these up together because I have very similar things to say about them. First of all, you have the promo in Creature Comforts. It's from Distilled. It's actually a really good promo. Like, I want to go for that card every time if it shows up early enough. I think that earns it like a 9 because it's something I really want. I should just be an 8. I'm gonna give it a 9 because it's a card I really want. Well, at the same time, I gave the Disaster and Had All the Dinosaurs 10. So should I give this one a 10 as well? I'm gonna give it a 10 because it's a card I want every time. Anyways, I feel very similar about the 2 micro expansions as both these. One is fine and interesting enough. The other I probably won't play without. In Creature Comforts, the one that's just fine is the Talents expansion. It's fine. The Talents are good. I just feel some of them are definitely better. Like if you get a card and flip it around, you're like, okay, I didn't get one of the good ones. Or you can find it and you're like, I got the good one. So in terms of gameplay, there are definitely cards that are better than others to have throughout the game. But again, it changed up the game a little bit. And this is also one that we've played quite a bit. So it was nice to get this change to it, adding a little layer to it, to a strategy as well. That's nice. The other Dreams Come True, that is great to have these extra things, because you immediately know if it's something you can or can't do. And as I say, most of us get 4 to 5 each turn, so it's 1 every other turn, except towards the end where we can do it a lot more. Some of it takes luck, and when you learn some of them to know, we might be capable of blocking one another from it. All of them are interesting. It gives a layer of a challenge. It's like, okay, I want to try and achieve this somehow, whilst also achieving all the other things. So it's a great expansion, and we play with it basically every time now, because it adds that amazing layer. So, Talents is going to be like a 7. It's a good expansion, it's a good addition to it. I probably wouldn't play with it every time, but if I feel like a challenge, sure. Whilst the other one is a 10, because we play with it every time. We only recently played without it because we had an all new player and we didn't want to bring that on him, because it can be a little much to have to keep an eye on this, because it uses things like visit all of the meadow or the forest, and if you don't quite know it, right? The Meadow Valley, again, I feel the same way. One is like fine, that's the crow. It's fine, you can land on a space and trade 1 for 1, and then do the space and stuff. It's fine. It's a little bit of hassle, not a hassle really. I mean, I think it's better than Talents. I've played with it more often. Talents. It's just 1 for 1 is fine, and then it moves around. It's just an extra thing to do really, and I don't feel like I at many points in Maple Valley sit with a resource where I want another resource. It's not often that I do that, where I sit with a like that. But when I do, it's nice to have it. So it's a good expansion, better than Talents. So I think I'd give it an 8. The Feathered Friends, or Feathery, I think it's Feathered Friends. Why didn't I read up on it? That, however, is a really great expansion because it's just these cards, but it does add a change to the gameplay. It's just they're shuffled in with the French cards. We don't play without them. It just adds this nice layer of the feathers drawn about that might change your trajectory, might change the way you move. Whereas I don't think the crow will, but the feather is a really good thing to get. So you might actually want to change your strategy based on where the feathers are. Whilst the crow is like, oh hey, I can go there with the crow as well. And they're just shuffled in. Like, we are going to play this every time from now on, because they're just shuffled in with the friends. They're really great. They're also expensive, but there's a reason for that. And this thing with all them using zooming to get to different locations in different variable ways, it really changes up the game. And again, it has been a while. It's been about a year, I think, actually, close to it, from me receiving Maple Valley, us playing it for the first time, and now we start playing with the expansion. That's about how long it took for us to get used to Maple Valley and being like, okay, let's add this. Even though it's just a micro expansion, it really does add something with the Feathered Friends. We will be playing with from now on, and I think when it's like that, where it's like I will be playing with this one every time, unless maybe if there's a completely new player, maybe not. I think that's a 10 out of 10 expansion. So a 7 out of 10, and a 10 out of 10, an 8 out of 10, and a 10 out of 10 for 2 9 out of 10 games. That is Creature Comforts and Maple Valley. Heat. Pedal to the metal. Alright, so this expansion obviously adds 2 new maps, but also adds for the garage module, I think it's called. I can't remember. It adds an all new symbol, this droplet symbol, purple droplet, which means you can take a heat from your discard pile and add it back into your engine rather than from your hand. So that's an interesting little addition. It adds a orange driver, which I think is a weird color because it kind of blends a little bit with the yellow and the red. Maybe you should have gone for a purple or something instead. But a fresh new driver, now you can play it at 7. And for the championship model here, it adds 1964, adding Japan twice for some reason. But yeah, so now you can go for 1961, 1962, 1963, and 1964. If you so desire. Might be the next thing that we're looking at in my group. But it also adds the maps. Most important part about it. So there are 2 things to it. First of all, it's a Japan and it is a Mexico map. The Japan map, okay, this is very not straight, depends 7 heat and 3 stress cards. But you might notice some water around. Yes, heavy rain is what it's called. This basically, if you're in water, you can't change gear without adding heat. So, for example, coming up on this 4 corner up here, you wanna, in this area, be down in gear, because up here it's gonna cost you. And it also adds this double chicane here, which, not a double chicane, it is just a chicane, where you have 2 corners having the same building. So this really only has anything for the weather module, where this area affects both of these corners right here. They're marked with blue lines, but basically they're just very close, 2 very close corners, usually having the same value. Here it's 4, and this is the Japan map. And if we flip it around, you can see the Mexico map. The Mexico map doesn't have any water spots, but it does have 2 chicanes, a double 7 up here, and a double 2 right here, where it is possible to go through if you're right here. But yeah, I think of the 2 maps, I probably do prefer Mexico. Just the water spots are a bit annoying. I think the chicanes that they have here, you start obviously here, and the chicanes that you have here, those are very unique opportunity to go very fast, very fast, very fast, and then you have a 6 still going quite fast, until you slow down for this end bit, where you're going through 4 and preparing for double 2 chicane here, before just sprinting off again. And going for 3 laps, it very much means that up here, your skill and your ability to save cards, and if you play with the garage module, if you've chosen the correct cards and are capable of saving them for just the right time, this can really mean something. I mean, the cards that give you plus in the corners from the garage module, those are very important in this one, because they will affect both of these corners. You can have a double 3 instead of double 2 to go ahead a little bit more. But I basically love these ones where there are these long straights, because it's about hand management all of a sudden. Save those large cards. That is Mexico and Japan. Well, actually, it's Heavy Rain. That's what the expansion is called. So Heavy Rain. So Heavy Rain, the Heat expansion. I've been looking forward to getting an expansion for this one ever since I heard something about it, and it did not disappoint. I love adding those chicanes where you have very tight corners right away. It works well with the weather expansion where you add these tiles to. I actually can't remember whether it's the same. I think it's the same expansion, but or module. It works okay. I would have been fine with them being 2 different abilities on it, but it is always interesting to have the same one in these chicanes where I love the 7 one, you can go really fast, and then you have 2, you can go really slow. It really adds a realistic touch, because a lot of tracks in the real world has chicanes where some of them you can go faster and you can't. Lovely addition. The orange player is, I think they should have gone a different color just because it clashes a little bit too much with the yellow and the red. I think there's other colors that I think would have been better. I mean, they have a grey and a black, a white maybe, or a purple or something, but nonetheless. The little droplet power, the little droplet where you can get it from your scout pile, your heat, is very interesting. Worked really well actually. It's a very big change to it, but usually you can work it really well in the garage module. Still haven't played the championship module with the 1964 season. Can't remember what it's called, even the module. I call it expansion, it's a module. Still haven't played that. I think I'm gonna have to very soon. It sounds interesting, starting from 61 going in to 64 of course. But Heavy Rain, I do like the water thing in Japan is good. It's something to think about when you're tactically driving through. I prefer Mexico, just both because it doesn't have those and because the layout of Mexico is more interesting. But it's a fine addition, it's a good addition. I think Heat Heavy Rain gets a 9 out of 10 from me for the various things that the expansion adds to it. And this is a proper expansion, it's just not an additional cards. It is a change to how you play on these maps, so that's nice. So yeah, Heat Heavy Rain, 9 out of 10. Let's move on. Meadow. Here's the important part of the Meadow downstream expansion setup, which is of course this board right here. Now there are 2 parts to this board. This right here is the easy side, the beginner side. The other side is a bit more advanced, but I'm just going to take the easy side as a note here. It does add cards to all the other piles, south, east, west, north, but I would have to go through all the cards to find them. And it of course adds the water pile over here as its main part of it. It also gives you an additional starting card which adds the water symbol. You can either have this side or this side. Yes. It also adds to the scoring over here the fish symbol. It's been randomly drawn over here. It could also be randomly drawn over here. I'll get into what that does in just a second. And it adds these waterfall pieces over here. And what the waterfall pieces mean is that when the hiker crosses them, you reset the entire water market over here. So you do that every other turn. The setup varies. This is just for the 3-player. The position often varies a little bit depending on the player count, I believe. Okay, I can't remember it fully in my head. It doesn't really matter. It changed it a little bit. And then you have, well, where are those? Down here. I'm a silly goose. Silly goose. Yes. There are these additional ones here. These are for the more advanced side where you add these onto them. So yeah, the yellow player. Yeah, so you have your kayaks starting down here. I'm just going to put in 1 player. I know I said that it was for 3 players, but I'm keeping it quite basic here. I'm getting rid of this keys cuts. Go away. Whenever you play a card that has an or, like this, then you move up the amount of arrows. So this would be 1 movement, and this would be 2 movements. You move that amount of spots here. When you cross a sign, this one, you do what it says. This one is quite easy. Draw from the water deck or the east deck. And up here you have, again, a choice. Get a road token, a path token here. Or discard a card to draw 2 more cards from that pile. Yes. Now here you have a little bit of a crossroad. This way gives you access to the Beaver Dam cards up here. Just a card to play, and of course allows you to take any card from row. This one over here allows you to score 3 additional points through this one if you have either that symbol and a tree or that symbol and a bird. Now obviously these symbols are just like these over here. They will be different. It could be berries down here, and these symbols will show up eventually. Let me see if I can get one of them out. they are not the easiest things, because there's not many of them actually. This is the kind of thing that a professional would have prepared a little while when. It's this one here, right? That's a symbol. Although this is a symbol that you need to build this one, but it's just to showcase how they look on cards. If you have either of those, you get to place your little extra scoring here. So yeah, you have a possibility of scoring extra 3 points. And it's not always possible. I've seen people skip this one. So whereas in the other one where you're going to miss out on these 2 points, you can maybe catch up with 3 points over here. So helping you out a little bit there. And you have another path token. Then you get this card right here, and this one's lower in value. So the first player here gets a 4-point value, and then it goes all the way down to a 1-point value. You get these cards automatically up on your hand here. And then over here you get to play a card. So this is sort of, these 3 failure spots is sort of working together as they allow you to get the path, which you need for these cards, then get the cards and play the cards. In addition to that, the further up you might notice these numbers here. Those are points. So if I'm here, I look backwards and it's 3 points. Whilst if I'm here, again I will look backwards and see it's 13 points that I score at the end of the game, in addition to whatever else I might score. So yeah. But of course, notice how these cards in the river don't score any points. They only move you up this track here. And that is basically what is of note in the Meadow downstream expansion. Totally forgot to mention this thing. This is the one you use over at the water cards. As you see, it can't be used over here. It has no ability. And you place it basically wherever, and you can take any card you want. It's the only card, except for the question mark card, it can also be used over here to take whatever you want. And that's how you get access to these cards over here. And of course, if you have one, take any card you want. These ones count as well. Meadow downstream. Man, I was very much delayed on getting this expansion. It took me a year after it was released to getting it. Also, the second expansion that has got something to do with water. Heat was heavy rain. This is downstream. But let me tell you, it does not disappoint. I really, really love it. I haven't tried the advanced side yet. Haven't been brave enough to do that. Only playing on the simple side, I don't want to call it, but it's really good still. And when you get to that crossroads, it says, am I going to get that triangle or not? Which way are we going to go? And when you were getting to the later stages, it's very much thinking like, what would these R's, what would they give me of points? Can I get to that 17 over the 13? Because that's a difference of 4 points. It's better than this 2-point card. You reach fairly far into it, but the one thing I would say about it is that movement on that one. When you get into the later ones, unless you can get one of the higher numbered cards of the last ones that are there, unless you can guaranteed get some of those, once you cross past into the, I think it's the 10-point marker one, it just doesn't seem like it's worth it to the amount of cards you take, because usually you will be worked towards the later rounds. So it might not really be worth it that much to try and go for it. That's just my opinion. Maybe I've been playing it too much like I would play regular Meadow and haven't involved the expansion enough. Or maybe the other side completely changes it. That would be interesting. I'll have to try that at some point. But that's not to say I don't like this expansion. I love it. It adds this second layer to it. More cards to get. You do get a larger area. And more to think about with the symbols, which is what I love. One thing I really, really love about Meadow is trying to assemble all these symbols and trying to think, okay, these symbols are important to have for later on, and now you have these symbols over here. And the water one does give you the chance to access some of the, like the beetle symbols or something later on in the game, whereas in regular Meadow, those would basically be gone. So great addition to it. Just all in all, is a great addition to Meadow. It's more symbols to think about. It makes it better, a little bit longer, but better. Opposite other expansions that make a game maybe longer, more complicated, and just worse, this does make it a little bit longer, a little bit more complicated, but so much better. I really love playing with it. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Meadow downstream. Let's move on. And finally, Wingspan. So I'm doing a bit more of a simple setup here for Wingspan, the Oceania expansion. What it adds is, of course, it adds the most famous thing, nectar. These little flower things here, they work in many different ways. Of course, that means that there are 5 new dice which give you nectar on them somehow. There are also some scoring tiles that are specific to this expansion. Before I get into that though, however, I just want to mention the Europe expansion. I don't think I talked about it too much. It basically only adds cards, but it also adds the Turkish abilities, which is when the round is over. So you have when the game is over, this adds when the round is over. Just thought I would mention that real quick. Oceania also adds its own specific power, which is actually the game's end, the yellow ability here, I believe. When the game is over. Yes. Now the nectar is both a free-for-all, so I mean if we take this specific one, say I had a corn and a nectar, I could pay its price. And as I do that, I pay the price to play the bird in here, I actually apply the nectar here as I used the nectar. And the same if I had this bird in here, let's say this one has, when it's activated, I can pay 1 anything to add a card from the stack beneath this bird. So I do that by paying a nectar, which also goes over here. Then of course I take my bird here and place it underneath. So basically any nectar is, as well as this one down here where you either pay a card or what's it called, a resource of your own choice to get an extra. If I pay it with a nectar, I place it there, trying to achieve as many nectar over here as possible, because that is extra points at the end. If you have the most, it's 5. If you have the second most, it's 2 points extra. Now the card I put on here is actually a good showing. As you can see, some cards need specifically nectar, like this Rainbow Lorry. Lovely names. So this one clearly it needs nectar specifically to be played, and some cards have that. But the nectar is also a joker that can be used as any kind. And those are the basic changes. This thing with the nectar all in. Yeah, there isn't a lot of that. I mean, of course, there's some scoring tiles that it changes as well, and a whole stack of new cards which I haven't gotten sleeved just yet. I really need to get on that. I think that's the next big project, is sleeving all the cards that I don't have sleeved just yet. What the hell is happening in here? Anyways, also it adds, I want to show that, yellow eggs. Yellow eggs, right there. Woo! My god, I have a lot of nectar, these upgraded nectar pieces. And of course also, I'm making a lot of noise. It of course also adds a yellow card holder here. Every single expansion so far has added a card holder. This one is yellow, the original one was blue, and the Europe one was purple. I believe the Asia one is red, but unfortunately I don't have Asia just yet because it still hasn't appeared in Danish. So yeah, Wingspan Oceania. Move on to Wingspan, of course. Wingspan here. In the next nesting box, I have talked about this one in a different one. It's number 3487 in the third printing, as anyone was wondering. Don't know why you would have that there. But I'm talking about Meadow Oceania. And this, when you get into the score, you will understand something. It obviously adds a bunch more bird cards, which is the main attraction of these ones. I can really quick mention Europe. Again, it does add an extra module, but just adds more bird cards. 8 out of 10. Wingspan Oceania, however, adds the nectar, that's what it's called. And that does include an extra bit of scoring and a new way of using it, because you definitely want to get a hold of the nectar, because it's used for everything, including some extra scoring. So that changes it up quite a lot, the gameplay and what you're trying to do within your game. But you also have new powers on these new birds with the in-game scoring thing, which is very much something that you're looking at constantly. If you can get a couple of those in, that changes what you're going to do within your game. Generally speaking, we have scored higher amount of points when we're playing with this one. Going towards the 90s, where in regular Wingspan we were around the 70s mark. Have once achieved more than 100, so that's nice. But generally speaking, we score more points with it, which is always lovely. But these nectar and the way it changes what you're doing in the gameplay is very lovely, and that gets me to the scoring. Because the way I would score expansions is quite different from games. Like a game can be a 2 out of 10, but have a 10 out of 10 expansion, it's something that improves the game a lot. One kind of expansion that I haven't mentioned is the thing that goes above it, 10 out of 10. Obviously, Oceania is a 10 out of 10, but to me, this is also something you would call an essential expansion. Essential expansion are Viticulture Tuscany, Sudorretto XXL, Wingspan Oceania. Essential expansions where I can't see myself playing the game without those expansions anymore. They are that important for this game just being even better. And this is coming from 3 games that are already, well, Viticulture is a 9 out of 10, whilst Wingspan and Sudorretto are 10 out of 10 games, and still you manage to put in an expansion where I can't play without it. I 100% recommend it. If you have Wingspan, you love it, I would 100% recommend checking out the Oceania expansion. The birds in it are wonderful. The endgame scoring is such a great addition to the already existing endgame scoring. And round scoring it's called more. And just the nectar changes things so much. You are going to be having more availability within your resources to buy birds through that nectar. But also, it's a dwindling amount because you're constantly adding them to your scoreline. It's such a great addition to Wingspan. So that's a 10 out of 10, and that was the last game of the day. So that's it. Those were 8 games with 14 expansions. Now there's actually some I crossed off on here. I crossed off both Viticulture and War Chest because I felt like those two could make a video on their own, which I am going to look into. But I'm also probably going to do some 5 games I've played because I'm trying to achieve the 20th episode, 100 games played, which is very interesting coming up. But this was expansion Extravaganza. Hopefully my editing skills are on point for this one. And well, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!